Hello, friends. Welcome to the Cold War Prepper. My name is Lee. I had fully intended to do everything today focused on establishing our goals and what we want to work on, who we want to be, and talking about how to set up New Year's resolutions for next year. And golly, the sun is so bright today, I just cannot get this or this to work. Let me see if I can use my flashlight. Maybe that'll help. I don't know. We'll see. That's a little bit better. Okay, so, um, but anyhow, yeah, I don't know. The lighting's not going to be that good today because of the sun behind me and everything else. I'm sorry for that. I did want to start off with the acknowledgement and that we've lost Pope Benedict XVI, and just if you would please pray for him. Quite a man. And I think a lot of the controversy about him was the fact that during World War II, at the end of World War II, he was a young Hitler youth member, and served on an anti-aircraft battery around Munich, and people could not forgive him of that. And so, and that's something we kind of have to take into mind, is sometimes we get caught up in the things around us, and and we may do things for the wrong reason, but or for the right reason, it's the wrong thing to do. There's so many things, but people just could not forgive him of that. And I think that's what ultimately, more than anything else, led, other than the fact that he was an equal opportunity hated guy. He kind of rode the middle. He was in the middle. He was more of a centrist. And so the the liberals in the church, who wanted to totally change church doctrine, hated him because they thought he was an ultra-conservative. And of course, the ultra-conservatives in the church hated him because they thought he was an ultra-liberal, wanting to change some things. And, so when you're in the center, you have this opportunity to be attacked by both sides. And that's where poor Pope Benedict XVI was, being attacked from both sides. He did so many great things. He was a member of Vatican II. He was the head of the commission that wrote the Catechism. We finally had this book explaining what the Catholic faith is, based on the four pillars of what we believe, which is the Nicene Creed, the seven sacraments, how to live a life of faith, and then how to pray. And so that's kind of what he based everything around. And so that was his call. Some fantastic writings. He wanted us to do two things that were a dramatic change for the church. Number one, become more biblical in our studies, let's put it. We read through the Bible in mass, but he wanted us to focus on studying the Bible. And so we have things like the Bible in a year and other things, I think, because of his urging. The other thing was he wanted us to become more logos, or Christ-centered. And his idea of logos, or the truth, was, anything logical. So anything logical, anything that is logos of the truth, comes from Christ, and therefore that allows us to have discussions that Christ can be in science, Christ can be in geology, in the history and the foundation of the evolution of the stars and everything else. And so that's kind of where he was, and he just that rattled a lot of cages. But he was 1 year older than my mother, and but gosh, in my opinion, what a great guy, at a great time. And he was, for 25 years under Pope John Paul II, he was the prefect for the doctrine of the faith. So he was basically the defender of the faith for 25 years. So rest in peace, Pope Benedict XVI, Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger of Munich. You will be missed. So with that, let's transition over into some famous guys, at least as far as I'm concerned. In 1992, and I think, so I don't know whether I dated this book, the date that I finished the course, or the day that I started the course, but this was February 12th, 1992, and I was undergoing certification as an instructor in Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So that was part of the quality movement that we had ongoing at the time here in the state of Texas. I was the director of quality and training for the Texas Air Control Board, which was the Texas Air Pollution Control Agency. And I started out in Houston, Region 6, and then I got promoted to the director's position and moved up here to Austin. And that's how I moved into the Austin area, was that promotion with the Air Control Board. So let's talk a little bit about these 3 guys, because when you go through the certification, they encourage you to read certain philosophers or current thinkers. And so, that was part of the requirement, was that we read Robert Fulghum and that we read Joel Barker. And we'll kind of get into those in just a couple minutes. But I want to explain some key terminology as we get into this discussion about how do we establish our goals. So one of the things we have to understand is that we're going to define a habit as a conjuncture of 3 different things. And it's going to be a conjuncture of desire, and that is what we want to do or what we want to accomplish, along with knowledge, which is the ability to say what we want to do or why we want to do something, and then skills, which gives us the ability to do it. So if you have all 3 of those present, if you have the desire to do something, you have the understanding of why it needs to be done, and then you have the skills of how to do it, then that can become one of your habits. And so they say that it takes, usually about 3 weeks, 21 iterations to turn something into a habit. So what we're looking at is, how do we develop habits in the future, in the oncoming year, that are going to be beneficial? Well, there's a little bit more to it than that. And so the first one is we have to define success. And there are 2 sides to success. And quite often what we do, hello, Butch, quite often what we do when we look at success is we look at the end result and we don't look at the process. And so quite often we can consume the ability to produce results and negate our ability to have those results, instead of focusing on both the result and the process to ensure that those results are consistent. So we look to a famous philosopher who taught us about the goose and the golden egg. So the king wanted more golden eggs. He wasn't becoming rich fast enough. So he squeezed the neck of the goose that produced the eggs until the goose died. And then, of course, he had no more golden eggs at all. So the question becomes one of, how do you do a process where let's take food in the future. So, right now you have your canned goods. Right now you probably have some freeze-dried food. You probably have some frozen food. But you also have to take a look at, how am I going to replace those in the future? What is the process of getting food into the house? Should there be a cataclysmic event? So that's the process. How am I going to grow it? How am I going to hunt it, fish it, whatever? But I've got to, if I consume all of my golden eggs, my canned goods, my frozen foods, and everything else, how am I going to replace those? What am I going to have in the pipeline in order to replace those? And that can become even more important than the actual golden egg itself. Hello, Hawaii Prepper. Good to see you. So we have to take a look at both of those sides of success. We have to take a look at the output. We have to take a look at the process that creates that output. So then we have to take a look at effectiveness and efficiency. So, are we doing it the best way possible, efficiency, and are we getting what we really want, the effectiveness of the overall program? And Dr. Covey used to talk about, do you have your ladder placed against the right wall? So you can have the best painting process in the world. You can have the best employees and they can paint away and do a perfect job. But if your ladder's on the wrong building or on the wrong wall, you've just done a perfect job for somebody who doesn't care. And so what he wants to focus on is make sure that we have our ladders on the right wall as we're doing the right task, and that is painting or whatever it is that we want to accomplish. So then he talks about making sure that we have our emotional bank accounts set up. And everybody starts off in the negative. So you're overdrawn on your bank account. And what you have to do is you have to continually make deposits into that other person's emotional bank account. You have to do things that are trustworthy. You have to do things that are beneficial to that person in order for them to build up a trust for you. And every time you deceive them, castigate them, or something else, that's a withdrawal from that checking account. And you can't afford to have a negative balance in that checking account. So how do we constantly reinforce other people as we are dealing with them, so that we're building up that trust, so that they can trust us? And so that's kind of where those things go. The last thing is the law of the harvest that we want to talk about. So the law of the harvest can also be called the natural law. And, if you plant a seed in the ground today, depending upon the variety, it may not ever come up. There are some seeds you plant in the ground before the first frost, and they're going to lie dormant. And then when the spring comes, they're going to erupt into a food. There are other foods that you're going to have to start indoors, as Alpine Preparedness is doing, and then put those seeds outside come spring, and they become a harvest for you. And there are some seeds you just have to put in the ground at the beginning of the spring, so that you have something at that harvest time at the end of the summer that are available to you. So you have to know those natural cyclical things of life and plant your seeds at the appropriate time. Nothing happens overnight. Okay. So you have to, as we talk about goal setting, as we talk about setting up our New Year's resolutions, we have to understand some things may require more than 1 year in order to accomplish over a period of time. So to say, I want to do X with this person in the next year, and you're already starting off at a negative emotional banking account or checking account, you're going to have to make several deposits over time. And so that may not be accomplished this year. It may take you 1.5 years in order to do that. So understand the natural law of how things happen over time, and nothing happens overnight, except to the destruction of a relationship. That does happen overnight. It can happen instantaneously. So one of the things we have to do is we have to make sure that we are constantly putting things in a positive vein. So I want to talk about first habit, which is be proactive. And the key of being proactive is understanding you have control. Maybe you don't have control of the situation around you, but you do have control on how you're going to react to that situation. And so you are a product of how you have reacted to things over time. So take a look at how you've reacted to things over time, and then is that the way you want to continue to react to things over time? And that's one of the ones that I'm working on is I have a very quick and hot temper. I realize that, and I try to work on that on a regular basis. Doesn't do me any good at all. It does not do me any good at all. And I realize that that's a shortcoming of mine. The other thing is understanding who you are and why you're here. So come up with your personal mission statement. What is it that I am here to accomplish? And then try to live to that mission statement, because once you can determine who you are and who you want to be, that sets everything else into perspective of all your other priorities, and it helps you to prioritize things as well. So when we talk about being proactive, we can talk about Dr. Joel Barker, and he's a fantastic guy. He's a futurist, and back in the early 90s, he was making all kinds of predictions about society and how we integrate with each other and how we deal with each other. And he was predicting, basically, he's the one that came up with the concept of hard times create good people create fun times create hard people or soft people, and then soft people create hard times. So that kind of a wheel, that's kind of, he didn't say it that way, but he kind of came up with the original concept of how that finally got finalized. Great futurist. I recommend reading his book, Paradigms, Paradigms. I think it's still appropriate today. But sometimes we think of things and say that's the way it is, only because that's the way I've thought it was for so long. That's that old Goebbels thought, that the Nazi minister of propaganda in World War II. If you tell a lie big enough and often enough, people will soon believe it's true. I am convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt that myself, the word myself, has been so inappropriately used for the last 20 years that it's going to change English grammar. And it's, instead of I being the nominative case, it's going to be myself. Instead of me being the dative or accusative case, it's going to be myself. And so everything's just going to be myself, I think. So, because that's the way we are. And so over time, we were changing the language so that now myself is everybody's using it instead of I and me. Of course, it wasn't meant that way, but that's the way it's happening. So Dr. Barker talks about how we can see the evolution of things, and sometimes not for the better case. The other one that Dr. Covey really strongly recommends is Dr. Robert Fulghum. I had his poster hanging on my wall in the barracks, and everybody always stopped by to see it. And so his key publication was Everything I Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. And so there's a thing on the web, and it's 16 key lessons that everybody learned that you need to remember from Robert Fulghum's book, All I Really Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. 1, share everything. 2, play fair. 3, don't hit people. 4, put things back where you found them. 5, clean up your own mess. 6, don't take things that aren't yours. 7, say you're sorry when you hurt somebody. 8, wash your hands before you eat. 9, flush. 10, warm cookies and cold milk are good for you. 11, live a balanced life. Learn some, think some, draw and paint and sing and dance and play and work some every day. Number 12, key for me, take a nap every afternoon. Number 13, when you go out in the world, watch out for traffic, hold hands, and stick together. Number 14, be aware of wonder. Remember the little seed in the styrofoam cup, the roots go down, the plant goes up, and nobody really knows how or why? We're all like that. Number 15, goldfish and hamsters and white mice, and even the little seed in the styrofoam cup, they all die, and so do we. Number 16, and then remember the Dick and Jane books, and the first word, the biggest word you ever learned was look. So that's Robert Fulghum and his things that everything we need to know we learned in kindergarten. Gosh, what a philosopher, because it really is that simple. The simple rules are be kind to each other, be polite, be respectful, take care of each other. So with that, I want to kind of move into Dr. Covey's second habit. And Dr. Covey's second habit is begin with the end in mind. So ask yourself, what is it you really want to be at the end of 2023? If you die December 31st of 2023, what do you want for your epitaph? And how are you going to start living today to make that epitaph come true? So what is it you want people to say about you? It's such an astonishing thing that Pope Benedict XVI died on the feast day of St. Sylvester. And I bet you nobody here knows who St. Sylvester is, and yet he accomplished two of the greatest accomplishments of the church. He was the Pope from January 31st, 3014 to December 31st, 3035. So today is his feast day because he died on December 31st, 335. He established and oversaw the First Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. And what was the First Council of Nicaea? It came out with something called the Nicene Creed. I believe in God the Father, creator of heaven and earth, and in Jesus Christ, his only begotten Son, our Lord, who was begotten by the Holy Spirit, born of the Virgin Mary, suffered under Pontius Pilate. Well, you know the Nicene Creed. So anyhow, that was established under him in 325. And then the second thing is just before that, in the year 312, and there's two different stories, and you can take whichever one you want. But there was this emperor of Rome by the name of Constantine. And so they said that Constantine came down with one of the stories is Constantine came down with leprosy, and Pope Sylvester went to visit him and baptized him. And as he baptized him, the leprosy left his body. And then the other story is that he was fighting the Mongol horde near Constantinople, and he saw a cross in heaven, and with the letters IHS, in hoc signo, with this sign you shall win. And so he saw that, and then because of his talkings with Sylvester, he turned over the keys to Rome. That is he merged the church and the Roman hierarchy, the Caesar, the leadership of Rome, into the Pope in 325. And then he left and ceded and went to Constantinople that he had just conquered, and that became the eastern half of the church, or eastern half of the Roman Empire. So that's kind of the second thing that Saint Sylvester did. And so it's kind of symbolic that I think that Saint Benedict would die on his feast day. But anyhow, let's get into that. Be proactive. Understand that your choice of what you. So let me start this another way. We understand that I am today who I am and what I am because of decisions that I have made in the past. And so with that, the person I want to be tomorrow is going to be as the result of decisions I make today. So today we can choose the path of either changing our path or of becoming what we want to become tomorrow. And that beginning tomorrow is what's going to lead towards that epitaph if we die at the end of the year. And so, what are you going to do in order to get that accomplished? And then the other thing is take it in bite-sized chunks. Don't try to do everything all at one time, because if you do, you become overwhelmed. When you get overwhelmed, you get frustrated. You say that the goal is unattainable, and you give up early. And I think that's what it is to not live up to your New Year's resolutions as we get overwhelmed by those. Let me see. Dragon Slayer saying, didn't St. Sylvester get the first ever keys to the city? No. The first keys to the city were given in Matthew 16:18 by Jesus to Peter. And so, and the keys, it's not the keys to the city, it's the keys. And so if you look on a Pope's vestments, he has keys embroidered up here. So the keys was basically, think of it as being the prime minister. So Jesus was the head of the church, and Peter was the first prime minister here on earth. And so he was given the keys to the church. Now, the keys to the city weren't given to any pope until Constantine gave them to St. Sylvester, Pope Sylvester. So that's kind of a little bit of a difference there. The keys to the church and the keys to Rome, two separate events. But anyhow, that's kind of what I wanted to share with you today. Was just, if you can, the 3 books I'm going to strongly recommend that you get. Of course, there's going to be, this is my instructor version, but the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Dr. Steven Covey. And then you get Paradigms by Joel Barker. And the third one is going to be Everything I Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten by Dr. Robert Fulghum, Fulghum. Now, the other part of the news I want to share with you here today on this relatively short half-hour live, unless there's no. And so the first keys to the city given to a cleric, somebody other than a Caesar or somebody like that, were given to Sylvester by Constantine. Up until that time, remember, all Christians were basically outlaws, outcasts, and were persecuted. Even Constantine persecuted Christians up until the time of his conversion. So, yeah. So, no, it would not make sense that any Christian would have been given the keys to the city of Rome at any time prior to Constantine. So anyhow, kind of where we are. I'm going to share with you tomorrow my New Year's resolutions and my goals for next year. Um, Susan, that is so, that's got to come up here. You are so absolutely right. Lori, no need to apologize. My wife didn't know I was doing a live today either. What I decided was I wanted to get this out about how to establish goals and how to set resolutions, according to Dr. Covey, Dr. Fulghum, and Joel Barker. And I said, it makes sense that the best way to do it probably be at the same time as I'm giving you the ideas that I use to get some of your ideas and some of your feedback on that. Susan, you're absolutely right. You don't have to worry about other people. All you have to worry about is yourself. If you can just be 1 millimeter better each day, that's all it's going to take. You are so absolutely correct. If you want the world to be a better place, it begins with you. It begins with you being me. So absolutely correct. You have to change the environment by being the environment that you want it to become. And I think that's that's one of the most important things out there is be the change that you want to happen, and have other people emulate you. They respect you so much that they want to emulate you. Okay. So unless there's any other questions, that's basically all I wanted to share with you, other than the fact that there is a live that's going on right now, and there are some pre-recorded aspects to it. Toolman Tim, I interviewed him a couple weeks ago. I think it was the first week in December, first Monday in December. Fantastic guy. He's got 24 solid hours of preppers and preppers quick notes. I gave him my 20 favorite items of 2022. And so there's going to be this loop going on for 24 hours of a whole bunch of his favorite preppers and their thoughts about prepping and getting ready for 2022. So I would encourage you to support that. I put up the link there to Toolman Tim's live. And anybody have any other questions or any other ideas or things they wanted to suggest about making New Year's resolutions and setting goals for next year? Okay, well, Helen just started a loaf of bread. This is going to be loaf number 2 on my new birthday present, the bread machine, and I got in part of my candle making supplies, so that I'm going to be taking a look at that and probably doing a little bit of exploration on that and sharing it with you all as we go along with those. So once again, if I can give you those 3 books again to add to your list, and then. I would recommend that you get, and you can probably get all 3 of them at a half-price bookstore for sure, because these are all 1990-ish books. So Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which is, we talked about habits 1 and 2. So he talks about there's the first 3 habits. Number 1 is, be proactive. Number 2 is begin with the end in mind. And number 3 is put first things first. So prioritize, learn how to prioritize. That's what he calls the dependence model. So at the bottom of his model are the 3 dependents. And then once you become a better dependent person, then the pyramid flips and become a better independent person or interdependent person. And that's habits 4, 5, and 6. So think win-win. Listen first to understand, and then to be understood, and then synergize. 2 people come together and create something greater than each individual has to offer. And then, of course, habit 7 kind of goes through the whole thing. It's cyclical in the sense of, and it's called synergize. Sharpen the saw, and you have to go back and on a regular basis review. Is your ladder on the right wall? Are you doing the right things? Are you doing what you need to do in order to, beginning with the end in mind, write your epitaph that you're going to have read at your funeral, because you start writing that autobiography for your epitaph today. And so that's why I want you to have that before you set your goals and your resolutions for tomorrow. Make sure that those goals and resolutions line up with Who is it you want to be seen as, or who is it you want to be known as on December 31st, 2023? So, number 6, verses 4, 5, and 6. Let me grab my Bible. And I've got it marked here somewhere, right there. So number 6, 24, 25, and 26, my apologies. And it says, the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you kindly and give you peace. So remembering that, remember that we're all in this together so we can come up the other side together. Be kind, polite, and respectful to each other, because togetherness is the key. Take care. Lori will talk about that. I'll send you an email. Happy New Year, everybody. Please stay careful. Bye-bye.